Imagine witnessing the most audacious transformation in human history. A single city surrounded by swamps and hills, systematically conquering the entire known world. Not through luck, not through a brilliant leader, but through 5 centuries of methodical, almost mechanical expansion that defied every rule of ancient warfare and politics. This is the story of how Rome achieved the impossible, and why understanding their rise reveals the hidden patterns that still shape our world today. Because what happened between 509 BC and 14 AD wasn't just conquest, it was the most successful case study in power accumulation ever documented. The Roman phenomenon begins with a simple but revolutionary concept: integration, not just conquest. While other ancient powers ruled through fear and extraction, Rome offered something unprecedented: citizenship as a reward for loyalty. This wasn't idealism, it was strategic genius that would prove unstoppable across 5 centuries. When Rome defeated the Latin tribes in 338 BC, instead of enslaving them, they granted varying degrees of Roman citizenship. These former enemies became stakeholders in Roman success. Their young men would fight not as conscripts, but as Romans defending their shared identity. Within 2 generations, the distinction between conqueror and conquered blurred beyond recognition. Consider the numbers. By 264 BC, Rome could field 8 legions, roughly 40,000 professional soldiers, while drawing upon 700,000 allied troops. No Mediterranean power could match this human resource advantage. The Romans had essentially weaponized diplomacy, creating a system where every victory multiplied their strength for the next campaign. But citizenship alone doesn't build empires. Rome's military machine represented a quantum leap in professional warfare. The manipular system, flexible units of 120 men each, could adapt to any terrain, any enemy formation. Unlike the rigid phalanxes of Greek city-states, Roman legions bent without breaking. The gladius, that infamous short sword, wasn't just a weapon, it was a philosophy. Designed for close combat, it required Romans to step inside their enemy's reach, to face death directly. This forged a warrior culture that viewed retreat as temporary and defeat as educational. Most importantly, Rome institutionalized military service. The year-long campaigns that broke other civilizations became routine for Roman citizens. While enemies went home to harvest crops, Romans stayed in the field, gradually grinding down resistance through sheer persistence. The Roman military system created what modern strategists would recognize as overwhelming logistical superiority. Roman armies carried standardized equipment, followed uniform training protocols, and operated within predictable command structures. This wasn't just organization, it was the industrialization of warfare centuries before the Industrial Revolution. Nothing tested Roman resolve like the Punic Wars with Carthage. Here was an empire that matched Rome's ambition, commanded vast wealth, and possessed military genius in Hannibal Barca. When Hannibal crossed the Alps with elephants and devastated Italy for 16 years, Rome faced extinction. The Roman response reveals their true character. After the catastrophic defeat at Cannae, where 70,000 Romans died in a single day, most civilizations would have sued for peace. Rome simply rebuilt their armies and changed their strategy. They would not fight Hannibal directly, instead they would attack Carthaginian possessions in Spain and Africa, forcing him to return home. This required unprecedented sacrifice. Roman citizens melted down jewelry to fund new fleets. They freed slaves to serve as rowers. They endured economic devastation for decades, all while maintaining the political will to continue fighting. When Hannibal was finally recalled to defend Carthage, Rome had demonstrated that they could absorb any loss and continue functioning. The victory at Zama in 202 BC didn't just defeat Carthage, it announced to the Mediterranean that Rome was fundamentally different from other powers. They wouldn't just win battles, they would outlast entire civilizations. If you're captivated by these mechanisms of power that still influence our world today, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. What we're uncovering here goes far deeper than traditional history lessons. These are the blueprints that shaped civilization itself. With Carthage eliminated, Rome turned its methodical approach eastward toward the Hellenistic kingdoms, the fractured remnants of Alexander's empire. Here Roman pragmatism met Greek sophistication, creating a cultural fusion that would define Western civilization. The Romans possessed something the Greeks had lost: political unity. While Greek city-states exhausted themselves in endless wars, Rome presented a single, unshakable authority. When they defeated Antiochus III at Magnesia in 190 BC, they dismantled the Seleucid Empire not through cultural suppression, but through selective adoption. Roman elites learned Greek, studied Greek philosophy, and imported Greek tutors for their children. They preserved Greek cities, protected Greek temples, and maintained Greek administrative systems. This wasn't cultural appropriation, it was cultural digestion. Rome consumed Greek civilization and emerged stronger, combining Greek intellectual sophistication with Roman institutional discipline. The speed of Roman adaptation astounded contemporaries. Within decades of conquering Greece, Roman libraries contained thousands of Greek manuscripts. Roman theaters performed Greek tragedies, Roman schools taught Greek rhetoric. Yet none of this weakened Roman identity, it enhanced it. The Romans demonstrated an almost unique capacity to absorb foreign excellence while maintaining their core institutional frameworks. This cultural synthesis created something entirely new in human history, a civilization that combined Greek intellectual achievements with Roman organizational genius. The result was a hybrid culture more sophisticated than either parent civilization, capable of governing diverse populations while maintaining central coherence. Behind every Roman conquest lay economic calculation. War for Rome was profitable. Each successful campaign brought slaves, precious metals, and new tax bases. The systematic looting of temples and treasuries funded the next campaign. Victory literally paid for itself. Consider the aftermath of Rome's victory over Perseus of Macedon in 168 BC. The treasury captured from Macedon was so vast that Roman citizens stopped paying direct taxes for over a century. Conquest had become a self-sustaining enterprise, where success generated the resources for further success. This created an expansion dynamic unique in ancient history. Other empires grew until they reached their resource limits. Rome grew because expansion increased their resources. Each new province provided more soldiers, more wealth, and more strategic depth for the next campaign. The psychological impact of this system cannot be overstated. Roman commanders didn't just fight for glory or territory, they fought for measurable economic returns that directly benefited their soldiers and supporters. This transformed conquest from political ambition into rational economic behavior. The Roman taxation system represented another revolutionary innovation. Unlike other ancient powers that extracted tribute through force, Rome created predictable tax structures that encouraged economic growth. Provinces that prospered under Roman rule generated more revenue, creating incentives for benevolent governance. Perhaps Rome's greatest innovation wasn't military or diplomatic, but administrative. Governing diverse populations across vast distances required systematic solutions. The Romans created standardized legal codes, uniform currency, and predictable administrative procedures that functioned from Britain to Mesopotamia. The development of Roman law represents one of history's most successful attempts to create universal governance principles. Laws that originated in disputes between Roman citizens gradually evolved into frameworks for governing Greeks, Gauls, Egyptians, and dozens of other peoples. The legal concept that individuals possessed rights independent of their tribal or ethnic identity was revolutionary. Roman engineering supported this administrative achievement. Roads connected distant provinces to central authority within weeks. Aqueducts brought fresh water to cities across the empire. Standardized architecture meant that a Roman traveling from York to Alexandria would recognize familiar institutions everywhere. The scale of Roman infrastructure projects defies comprehension. The road network alone stretched over 250,000 miles, enough to circle the Earth 10 times. These weren't simple paths, but engineered highways with foundations, drainage systems, and mile markers that remained functional for centuries after the empire's fall. Roman urban planning created cities that functioned as miniature versions of Rome itself. Forums, basilicas, theaters, and baths followed standardized designs that facilitated both commerce and governance. This architectural uniformity reinforced political unity across vast geographical distances. But empire changed Rome as much as Rome changed the world. The citizen soldiers who conquered Italy gradually evolved into professional legions recruited from non-Roman populations. The simple farming communities that defeated Hannibal transformed into cosmopolitan cities filled with foreign slaves, merchants, and intellectuals. Traditional Roman values, duty, simplicity, agricultural virtue, clashed with the sophistication and wealth that conquest brought. Roman senators began living like Hellenistic kings, surrounded by Greek art, Persian luxuries, and Syrian slaves. The institutions designed for a city-state struggled to govern a continental empire. This internal transformation generated new conflicts. The social war between 91 and 88 BC erupted when Italian allies demanded full Roman citizenship. The slave revolt led by Spartacus from 73 to 71 BC demonstrated the contradictions of a society built on conquered labor. Political competition intensified as traditional offices proved inadequate for governing vast territories. The Gracchi brothers' attempted land reforms in the 2nd century BC revealed the fundamental tension within Roman society. Traditional Roman prosperity depended on citizen farmers, but empire required professional armies and urban administration. These competing demands ultimately proved irreconcilable within republican institutions. Rome's very success created the conditions for its political transformation. Generals like Marius and Sulla commanded personal armies, loyal to them rather than to the state. The wealth flowing from provinces corrupted traditional political relationships. Citizens in distant territories had little connection to the city of Rome itself. The late Republic witnessed the emergence of strongmen who commanded resources rivaling entire kingdoms. Pompey controlled the eastern Mediterranean, Caesar conquered Gaul, and Crassus commanded vast private armies. The Roman state had created powers it could no longer control through traditional institutions. When Caesar crossed the Rubicon in 49 BC, he wasn't just challenging Pompey, he was acknowledging that the Roman Republic could no longer contain the forces it had unleashed. The ensuing civil wars represented not the failure of Roman expansion, but its logical culmination. The transformation from republic to empire under Augustus represented the final adaptation in Rome's 500-year evolution. The political forms changed, but the underlying patterns persisted: systematic integration of conquered peoples, professional administration, cultural flexibility, and military superiority. What makes Roman expansion historically unique is its duration and systematic nature. Other ancient empires, Assyrian, Persian, Macedonian, achieved rapid conquests that quickly fragmented. Rome built gradually, adapted constantly, and created institutions that survived military defeats, political crises, and cultural transformations. The Roman example demonstrates how incremental decisions, accumulated over centuries, can produce results that no single generation intended or imagined. Those senators who granted citizenship to Latin allies in 338 BC couldn't have envisioned legions marching through British forests or Roman law being administered in Egyptian temples. This is perhaps the most profound lesson of Roman expansion. Historical change often occurs through processes so gradual that contemporaries barely notice them. The Rome that began conquering Italy in the 4th century BC bore little resemblance to the empire that ruled the Mediterranean in the 1st century AD, yet each transformation followed logically from previous decisions. As you reflect on these massive historical transformations that continue shaping our modern world, make sure to like this video and share it with others who appreciate understanding the deeper mechanisms of power and change. Comment below with your thoughts on which aspect of Roman expansion you find most relevant to understanding our current global dynamics. The Roman rise reminds us that empires aren't built by visionary leaders or master plans, but through the accumulation of practical decisions made by people who couldn't foresee their ultimate consequences. In the slow grinding of historical forces, individual ambitions become civilizational transformations, and local conflicts reshape entire continents. The 500 years of Roman expansion stand as testament to what patience, adaptability, and systematic thinking can achieve, and what they ultimately cost. Understanding these patterns isn't just about appreciating ancient history, it's about recognizing the forces that continue to shape our world today.